Neuroscience. More specifically, how do neurons work? The brain is the part of the body that makes you think. But the brain is not just one big cell. It's a collection of many, many cells. These brain cells are called neurons. But if the brain is made of so many different cells, how do they communicate to each other? Let's look at a neuron. A neuron has six parts: dendrites, cell body, nucleus, the axon, myelin sheath, and the axon ending. Now, how do these neurons carry an electrical current? Well, it might be easy to think of neurons as parts of a wire. They actually work a lot differently from wires. Neurons transmit electric charges with two types of ions, potassium and sodium. With the use of active transport pumps, potassium stays inside the cell and sodium stays outside. Because of this, the inside of the cell is more negatively charged than the outside of the cell. When a disturbance, such as a neurotransmitter or other disturbance, changes the charge gradient around the dendrite, sodium channels open around that area, letting those ions back into the cell. In this area of the neuron, the inside of the cell becomes more positively charged than the outside because of the sodium flowing into the cell via facilitated diffusion. The change in charge disrupts nearby sodium gates, opening them up, and so on, and the change in electric charge or action potential is carried all the way down the neuron from the dendrite to the axon. Now, if this was all that happened, a neuron could only send one message before it was rendered completely useless, since once the action potential passes through, there wouldn't be a correct net charge inside and outside of the cell for the neuron to function properly. But that's what potassium gates are for. After the action potential moves on, sodium channels close and potassium channels open up, releasing K+ from the cell. Then, sodium-potassium pumps use ATP to exchange 2 K+ ions for 3 Na+ ions, bringing the cell back into balance. This only explains how transmission can go from one side of the cell to the other, but not in between neurons. At the axon of a neuron, action potentials cause calcium gates to open, allowing calcium to enter that area of the neuron. The calcium, when it diffuses into the cell, allows vesicles containing neurotransmitters to be released across the gap between the axon and the dendrite of the next neuron, called the synapse, which then starts the action potential chain reaction all over again when it reaches the dendrite on the other side of the synapse. Normally, most neurons communicate with each other by releasing one of over 50 different types of neurotransmitter. Each neurotransmitter fits onto its receptor on the surface of a neighboring neuron. Chemicals and drugs, such as mercury and cocaine, can severely affect one's neurons. Both mercury and cocaine can stop the chemical reactions that create neurotransmitters. From there, the vesicles without neurotransmitters are broken down by enzymes, which then prevents neurotransmitters from entering or leaving the vesicles. They then bind to the receptors in the place of the neurotransmitters and keep them from returning to their sending neuron. Essentially, these toxins can be very damaging by blocking nerve impulses, preventing neurotransmitters from being in their proper positions and producing too many or too few neurotransmitters. As a result, neurons can be either over or understimulated, crippling the nervous system's ability to carry out its jobs. Thank you for watching.